Hey, everybody. Welcome to today's episode of the VertiMax VIVE podcast. I'm Al Merez. I'll be your host today. We're going to be streaming this podcast live on most of our channels. So welcome to all of you that are joining us from Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, LinkedIn, wherever you are, wherever you're turning in from. So I want to mention this a couple of times throughout today's podcast, but if you have questions, you have a comment or anything like that, for myself or for Coach Young, please don't hesitate to give us a comment, add it to a post there, or shoot it over our way. I'll try to do my best to get everything answered for you. And I'm really excited and actually honored today to speak with Coach Megan Young. Coach Young is in her second season as the high performance director with the Chicago Red Stars. I know they just finished up their season. Previously, Coach Young worked with the Auburn University Athletics Department, where she was part of their strength and conditioning program for 11 years. For years, she was there with the men's baseball and basketball program, working her all the way up to where she was the director for all the strength and conditioning related activities for the women's soccer and basketball programs. She holds certifications with the NSCA, the CSCCa, USA Weightlifting, USA Track and Field. So basically, she's achieved just about everything you can achieve as a strength coach. And so, Coach Young, we're honored to have you today, and welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for the invite, and I appreciate you guys having me on.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, I'm excited to dive into your current position here in a few minutes, but really I'm just, impressed with what you've been able to do and the success you've achieved, in a predominantly male-dominated field like strength and conditioning. Being in strength and conditioning myself for over 10 years now with VertiMax, I've seen a lot of really great strides recently for women, achieving success in these kind of programs. And I know that, a handful of coaches like yourself have really paved the way for others. So for me and from everybody here, thank you for being a leader in that.
I appreciate that. I mean, it's never just one person, right? But you can just do what you can where you are and build from there.
Absolutely. So walk us through just a little bit of what got you into strength and conditioning originally, and then, how you've seen it grow and some of the challenges you saw early on getting into it.
So I started off not in strength and conditioning. I was a D1 college athlete, a thrower, shot put, discus, hammer at the University of North Carolina, Wilmington, and had every intention of going to business school and then going on to law school, and that was going to be my path. And then 2 weeks into undergrad, I'd been working with my college strength coach, and he looks at me. His name's Jimmy Mayhew, and he was like, "You're going to be a strength coach." And I was like, "Yeah, you're right." And it just consumed me, right? It was definitely touching passion and just realizing how hot that fire was and engaging with it in the first time in terms of being around strength and conditioning in terms of a college level. So it just sucked me in, and I rode that wave, and that took me on to grad school at Baylor, and then I was teaching classes there and working with all the sports, and then was lucky enough to have an internship opportunity that turned into a full-time job at Auburn. And like you said, I spent my 20s there, and now I'm working in Chicago with a sport I never played growing up, and I've definitely fallen in love with, and it's amazing to fall in love with a different sport in your 20s. And kind of learn it from a different perspective as opposed to just participating in it, and loving that. And like you said, there's more positions and more diversity and more inclusion happening in the world and in the United States, but that's definitely something we have to keep driving forward. And I would say that the female athletes I'm lucky enough to work with, those women and who they push that envelope a lot themselves, and not just this league, but in the world and who they represent. So I'm very fortunate for the players I get to work with.
Yeah, that's great. I know it's come a long way, in the last few years, and there's a lot of room to go still. And I think everybody's really making a concerted effort to make that happen. It's really good to see, not only from the athlete side of things, but also coaches and in business as well.
for sure.
So like back when you were just getting started, I know the numbers were a lot smaller than they are now. What were some of the challenges that you saw kind of breaking into strength and conditioning and, others' views upon you on that?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of this false reality, right? Like, I think a lot of it is just insecurities of people not having worked with a female before versus actually like being hard to work as a female. It's so really we're dealing with other people's insecurities and projection of fears versus how hard it actually is for us. To me, I'm a coach, so I'm good at my job and I'm just going to do my job. But I have to deal with whatever you're not okay with in order to do my job. So, whether that's early on, it was an easy enough way to coach a male athlete when I would just pick up their weight and give them the coaching cues they weren't taking before while performing the exercise with whatever their weight was, right? And blessed are those days, and those days are also behind me, right? Like, I'm not trying
Right.
to squat or deadlift or do those things. I don't need to, but I would say when you're young, you use what you have, and that was one of the gifts I had.
Yeah.
But also, it became as you grow and mature, and just develop as a human too, you start to learn what more and refine those gifts, what you have, and those aren't just coaching gifts and skills; those are people skills, and they evolve in all of your relationships. So for me, it was connecting and truly connecting with the individuals I get to work with, whether it's the athletes or the coaches or different staff members. So when those relationships started growing, that's a way to build investment in different strategy, and those always pay off. So I would say that, it's less of a challenge. You have to be willing to be the only one of you in the room. That's for sure. Like,
Mhm.
having the
Mhm.
opportunity to work with other female strength coaches is not really something I know. But knowing that I'm comfortable in my own skin, regardless if I'm coaching a male team, a female team, basketball, baseball, football, like, those things haven't mattered to me. I've been willing to be uncomfortable and learn a sport or learn an environment and be able to sit back and say, I don't know everything about it. So, and that's a challenge I keep trying to issue to myself and take on different challenges. It's one of the reasons I'm here in Chicago. It's, I wanted to work in a different environment and help build something there.
No, it's great. And gone are the days where a coach has to have played the sport and achieve success in that sport. Like, athletes used to look up to coaches that kind of achieved what they want to achieve. But now with, the education that's out there and the study that's out there, it's such a specialized field that a coach is a coach is a coach. You just learn the different sports and you're able to, translate that over. And I've heard you say it before, but just kind of like relating to the athlete and being able to, connect with them on a level for that day and getting them to do what they need to do for that day is really important. So,
For sure.
yeah, no, sorry, there's a little bit of a delay for whatever reason here today. So, and it's just great seeing, like you said, more and more women getting into the field. Even here at VertiMax, we recently are having our first female master trainer. And we're super excited to bring Emily Hutchins on board as a master trainer. I know she's from Chicago there. I think she's a pretty good friend of yours and great trainer. It's just not easy to find trainers that are female that connect all of the boxes that that we were looking for at the time. And so now we've been able to get to work with Emily and see what she's all about and visit her facility. I visited her facility there in Chicago, and man, what a great show and organization she's running over there.
For sure. Absolutely.
So then, as some questions coming in here. We're going to dive into all these questions here in a minute. As the director of high performance, it's obviously a great role, professional sports, something that a lot of strength coaches, strive for and look to achieve. Can you just kind of break down what exactly that role does and means? Obviously, you're not squatting and spotting people anymore, as you said earlier.
Yeah, no, definitely still spotting people. I just don't have to squat their weight. And, so just chasing different things, I guess, in relationships. But so I think that when we talk about titles and roles, it's really important to ask the question you just did, is like, what does that mean? Because in every environment, it can mean something different, right? And so I try not to get too stuck on, oh, this is my title, so this is my only area and this is my only role. I try and look at people and say, well, what is their specific skill set? Because let's say there's 3 PTs in a room and 3 sports scientists in a room. Well, just labeling them as PT, well, maybe they're great with data analytics, or maybe they're great with documentation. So like trying to understand what people are passionate about as opposed to just what they went to school for. Um, so for specifically in my role, a lot of what my job is, like, let's say in season, in season, handling every day the practice periodization and working with the technical staff to make sure we're meeting the physical demands for the players to achieve maximum performance. So whatever that is in terms of scheduling, hitting in different loads on different days or specific individual targets, all those details within the GPS and the analytics and those type of things, as well as player readiness and monitoring of those metrics. And then, yeah, when we go out to the field, what are we doing? Are we working on speed? Are we working on agility? Are we working on change of direction? Are we working on some strength training? Like all those things come into play. So for me, high performance also involves nutrition. And this is not an NFL franchise where there's 5 strength coaches, a sports scientist, a 2 nutritionists, and a full catering staff. So a lot of that falls under N of one. You're looking at her. So, and I think a lot of people feel the pressure to like throw all technology and solutions into a system or organization without ever reading like what the environment actually needs. And so I'm glad that I wasn't in this role 10 years ago, if that makes sense. So being able to come in and say, well, what do the players actually need? What can I learn? And I've learned so much from these players that have been playing 4, 5, 6, 8 years within a league or playing professionally since they were 14 and being able to take from that. So I would say as a coach, what I'm giving to them and our relationship and being able to keep them healthy and then also increase their performance levels, that I'm getting double back from them and being able to learn about what does it mean to play within this league? What is the demands and the ins and outs of that? So year 1 versus year 2 is completely different, right? And being able to up that. And then you throw in everything that's happening this year that no one's been through. So we ride that wave too.
That's awesome. It takes a big person to, as a strength coach or in any kind of profession, you always want to prove what your worth and your knowledge and kind of force that on other people. And so to stand there and say, hey, I'm learning from them, which you definitely can, especially dealing with a professional that's been in the industry that kind of knows their body, knows what they've done and what works for them. Being able to relate to them on that level is really important. But it's funny you mentioned.
And also knowing that they know their body. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, go ahead. Sorry.
I was just going to say that, these players too, a lot of times we take in and say, this is what movement's supposed to look like. This is a screen, or this is how I assess. And you can learn a lot from players by asking them questions first. That's something that I think Andrea Hootie always bangs into my head. And she's like, ask better questions and have better relationships. And that'll go further than any technology and questionnaire, and because you have real connection with people versus just an automated system.
Yeah, that's awesome. That probably is even, played a bigger role this year when you're talking about, COVID and probably having to relate to them at a distance, right? How did that affect y'all's preseason training and in season training actually?
Yeah, so we trained for a week and then COVID shut us down. And then, Illinois was definitely one of the states that was hit first. It kind of went into lockdown. And so I think that was 11 weeks that everyone was away and like separated within either their housing unit or their own space. And so what were we doing during that? And being able to already have solidified relationships by knowing that's the most important thing. There's a kilo hair. And just being able to FaceTime with them and check in with them and build out what works for them within the space they have. That was huge for us. And then we were lucky enough to be able to start training and as a team and in small groups, and then go into a bubble in Utah and play some games in the Challenge Cup. and go to the final of that, and then come back here, get a little break, and then play a couple more games in the fall series. So super fortunate for us to have no positive COVID test given everything we've had going on and travel and all of that, and then be able to also play some soccer games and have some success in the field and get players ready for whatever that next phase is, whether it's preseason for next year or whether it's international camps or whatever they have called on.
That's cool. What was the like your sanity level of getting through there? Was it challenging? Were you doing like individual workouts just based off of whatever athlete had at their disposal, or were you trying to kind of think of a program that anybody could do with whatever they had there?
A little bit of both, right? Like, I mean, it's not like these are 100 clients that I can't even talk to everyone on a daily basis or a weekly basis. So, and everyone, yeah, had different levels of equipment and things like that. But thank goodness it was warm enough to be outside in Chicago. So they were able to go outside and until then the parks got locked down, right? So like there was a time point where we were literally doing everything within their living space, within their quarters. So, but then going out we were still able to get in, I think 4.5, 5 weeks of training before we went into Utah. And so I would say the lockdown wasn't hard. And personally, like things were great for me. I have an amazing dog laying at my feet right now and an amazing partner and a Peloton. So my sanity level was perfect.
Cool.
But, and then going into Utah, like, sure, bubbles are hard, right? Because we're all away from our support systems and athletes have 24/7 access to you and you're changing game schedules of playing a 10 o'clock game and then a 3 p.m. game and then practicing on grass and playing games on turf. And you're playing at altitude and it's 100 degrees. So like there's a lot of environmental factors and then emotional stress and strain of a pandemic and what's happening in America and all these different things kind of putting pinpoint pressure on the first league back to play in America and our players being the face of that. So I would say it was less on me and definitely more on them, but I was able to serve in some emotional support role for different players. And that again just goes back to those relationships and whether it's being the best I can at providing recovery resources for them or being able to adjust nutritionally different interventions for them or even just talking as a technical staff of what are we trying to achieve at training today and was it more of a physical training load or was it more of an emotional training load? So all of those things pay off.
Cool. No, that's great. A little shout out here from Chris Gora saying, "What's up, Megan?"
What's up, coach?
Yeah, I got a lot of people jumping on here saying, "Hey," so got a lot of your friends on here. That's great. So this type of position here is like a high performance director. Is that something you've always aspired to? What was your dreams coming up to it as a coach?
I'd say as a coach, like dreams change with education and with experience, right? Like in life. So, you know, when I was a college thrower, I was like, oh, I grew up in North Carolina. Like basketball is what I know and love. And I was at Baylor and there's two great programs there and the men's and women's side. And then at Auburn, I was working women's basketball and then that became a full-time job. And soccer was a sport that was my first team at Auburn. So it was kind of like this dual love. And I was like, oh, I'll probably just like keep working in college basketball. And then it became like, oh, I'm working in college basketball and that's my first job. And I'm working in the most like dominant league in the women's game. And I was like, well, I'm working for a gold medal head coach with a team that just went to the NCAA, won the SEC regular season. So I had to reset expectations, right? And I think something that happened for me early on was I quit identifying my goals as my team's outcomes. And so winning championships is definitely everyone's goal when you're a part of a system and an organization. Like I'm not going to be a part of the Chicago Red Stars if I'm not trying to win the NWSL Shield. Then we have nothing in common and why am I here? Right. But personally, I had to start identifying like what are some of my other goals. And so that's where going back to school came from. And it was I need something to challenge me besides just physically. And I was able to go back to school at Auburn and take a lot of courses there. I'm super fortunate through the adult education department, and then through the business school and data science. So, um, and that's what I mean by like doing and accepting everything you can from the opportunities around you from where you currently are versus just looking to go somewhere else, right? I'm not the typical college strength coach that has moved 8 times or 15 times within the first 10 years of their career. Like,
Yeah.
I went to Baylor for grad school, and then I was at Auburn for over a decade. So when people talk about like what normal is, I guess I question what people call normal anyways. So I probably don't fit into that box that people make. Um, so unique experiences, and then from there, it life changed a bit for me, and I, I I had kept getting asked like, "Oh, do you just want to be a director?" I'm like, "Heck no!" Like, running a department of strength and conditioning at a college wasn't a goal. But then I was able to work with just women's soccer and start to get into research and work in other avenues with other departments on campus. And that was something I was passionate about. It was like I'm making more of a global impact as opposed to just a strength and conditioning impact. And I became fascinated with that research side. And those relationships, because now it was feeding a different part of my brain than just sport. And growing up too, like music was super important to me, so it almost felt like math became music for me. So I had this data side of things and then the sports side of things, and then being able to blur the two together on the daily basis was a unique opportunity and experience for me.
That's great. Yeah. Yeah. I would say you didn't take the traditional path of a strength coach where you're bouncing around and
No.
kind of like following a head coach around for a little while to his school and then along the way. And so, and I know your life kind of took a turn a few years back. So if you don't mind, I'd love to kind of dive into that personal side of things with you.
Sure.
One of the reasons I really wanted to have you on today is because I admire your willingness to speak on and use your platform, to be open with your battle with cancer. And I saw you talk at Summer Strong there with Sorinex, and I really was intrigued with your message and really, I love your belief that you speak for those that can't. And if you can, just kind of like explain to us what exactly that means to you.
Sure. Yeah, I think that everything we're able to survive and go through allows us to create a vulnerable space. And a lot of times, especially with strength coaches, if you're in the college world or if you're in private, like, people look up to you because you are healthy or you are fit or you epitomize something they wish to have or something they're driving towards. And for me, that leads a lot of strength coaches to never show their vulnerability or who they really are outside of the gym or outside of the weight room or outside of the private setting. So um, I I took a personal charge of in 2015 I was diagnosed with acute myeloid leukemia while I was working at Auburn and went through treatment at Birmingham and had this huge outpouring of support from coaches I've never met, teams I've never worked with, sports I didn't know existed, right? Like everything, you name it, they showed up, and it was like, well, thank you cards to those people is not going to do nearly as much as being able to serve the people that are going through the same thing I've been going through. So that's where my life took a turn of what expectation meant and what it meant to be a servant. And um, so to open up that platform and speak for those who can't, what I mean is those people that are either battling something that, whether it be cancer or depression or PTSD or whatever that is for them, but don't yet know that it's okay to speak about it. So I want to change what it means to be strong. And being strong, besides physically, means to show your scars. It means to share the vulnerability. It means to share the hard things that actually made you who you are. And the other thing I choose to say within this platform is choose your struggle or it chooses you. And
Mm-hmm.
whether that's you being disciplined and that's a struggle for you to get up and go to the gym, or whether it's choosing to get in that cold tub, whatever that is for you, I try and choose something hard every day so that that expectation of what it means to do hard things is something that you choose and that's the life it becomes, and then you get to bring other people alongside. So that's kind of a lot rolled up in one. But I just celebrated too my 5 years of remission, which actually means I get to say that I'm cured, which is like a huge blessing. And it's a weird time too, right? Like it's a time where there's this thing that has constantly been around that now that's a part of who I am, and now that thing's behind me. So now I'm at that same evolution point again of what does it mean? What does it mean to be me? Because now I'm not just the survivor. What's that next chapter?
Yeah.
And so I encourage anyone that is going through things, and every time I've spoken about it, I get held up on Instagram and get a thank you because I didn't know it was okay to talk about, or I have a parent that's gone through this, or I've lost a child to this. And um, I think that we need to have more candid conversations and more vulnerable conversations to truly change all the other things we talk about within the profession and in the world.
Mhm. That's awesome. Yeah, definitely an inspiration. It's not easy to say, "Hey, I'm not feeling good," or I'm not dealing with this really well," and or whatever your adversity might be. It's so easy to keep that bottled up, and obviously that can do a lot more harm for you, uh, along the way than actually being open about it.
For sure. And, like I'm fortunate to know a lot of really strong people. I don't know a lot of really strong people that haven't gone through something to get there.
Yeah, that's awesome. And that goes to your point of, choose struggle or choose adversity. I've seen that along your pages quite a bit, and that's awesome. That's a great way to kind of approach life. And if you deal with this a little bit along the way, it makes the stuff that you don't know that's coming around the corner that much easier to deal with because you've dealt with some hard things along the way.
Yeah, and it puts people around you that are doing the same. So for me, it's not even that I'm ready for whatever the next hard thing is. It's I have that circle of support around me that's ready to help me get through that hard thing and choose to do that hard thing.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. So going through, this bout over the last 5 years, and has that changed your long-term trajectory of what you wanted to do or what your goals were in life?
Oh my gosh.
You look at anything
It
different?
changed everything about me. And that's why like I call it the best thing that ever happened to me because in one breath it allowed me to um, take away the thing that was my single identity probably up until that point, which was being physically strong. And when you're no longer physically strong, it's like, well, what am I? So
Yeah,
it and being able to go through things where it really sets you down. And I'm one of those stubborn people. So I need something to knock me on my face to say, all right, that's gone. Now what? And that's what allowed me to fall in love with the data science side of things and be able to use my brain and not just my body to work within the sport world. So huge blessing there. Another huge blessing is I know exactly what matters to me. And if it doesn't fall into those, if it's not a non-negotiable, then why do I need to worry about it? So, and it allows me to connect and be really authentic with people and um, be able to come from a place of, not everyone's gone through cancer, but I've at least gone through some hard things, so I can sit and listen to people talk about their hard things. And I think that it's just like that energy you give off and that empathetic resonance you create for another person and that space to just like feel what they have going on and be truly receptive of that and use it to either help them through that or just let them heal through themselves or to create motivation. Like maybe it's to help them hold themselves accountable to whatever they're trying to work towards. So that's again like how relationships function. The more I know about myself, the more I can be authentic and create better relationships, whether we're talking work or life.
yeah, and that's what a great trait to have as a coach that's leading, young athletes and being able to sympathize with them and relate to them. I'm sure every one of your athletes is dealing with something different, and so to be able to look at them and deal with that and help them through it's a blessing.
Absolutely.
So as a professional female, in a sports world, not necessarily in soccer, but in a lot of fields, that's male dominated, strength coaches, even, a lot of head coaches and stuff. We're seeing that kind of that trend of equality and inclusion and more females being promoted and hired, and specifically in professional football, men's football and basketball. It's just a great thing to see women getting that opportunity. How does that feel like in your circle of professional females in the industry? Is that something you guys are talking about and dealing with? And obviously, as a coach of professional women's soccer players, they're on the forefront of all of that and helping to lead that equality charge.
Yeah, I mean, I think you look at within our league, 2 teams on table coming into the league and just the growth of that, and then the people involved in those clubs and helping organize, like driving that league forward and making sure it's a sustainable model. That's amazing. And then outside of that, like I think about the women I know within professional baseball, professional basketball, professional football. It's like, yes, we talk about those things. And yes, we drive each other to apply for those jobs and apply for those positions. And yes, we take those calls and say, yes, here's the coach you need. Oh, you didn't ask for a female, but that's still the person I recommended. And not because they're female, but because they're right for the job. And
Right.
so I never want to be hired just because I'm a female. I want to be hired because I'm the best person for the job. And that's the way I've always viewed it. Now, what I will say, it's the charge of men like you and men in these head positions, because there are more men in those positions, to create an opportunity to see a female and say, you know what, she is the best person for the job, and interview more females and interview more coaches of different backgrounds and different diversities. Like, that's going to make everyone better. If everyone in our organization is the exact same, then how are we supposed to think different and grow? I don't know.
Yeah, that's a great point. And it's like you said, it's not about getting an opportunity just because you're female. It's about actually people changing their thought process to where a coach of men doesn't have to be a man. Right?
Exactly. Yeah.
So really great to see, the more of yous and Rachel and with the Yankees and, Katie with the 49ers and Kelsey with the Raiders, like the more this younger group and of females see that, the more they're going to aspire to be in those positions. And then the more men see them being successful in their roles is the more opportunities that are going to be presented to them. It's a change that's long overdue for sure.
And I think it helps too when people you don't have to take a certain path to get somewhere. I haven't jumped around. You don't have to work in a job where everyone treats you like dirt to get to that next job. But what you have to do is be willing to struggle, like whether it is in pay, whether it is in environment. Like, I'm not saying take things that you shouldn't, but I'm saying that I made $30,000 in my first full-time job for 5 years. And I did that with a master's degree. That says more about where our profession is than where I am as a person. And so now I refuse to send out names for people that they still tell me jobs are for $30,000. I'm like, sorry, I don't know anyone, because I don't want to put anyone in a financial situation where you're decreasing their life value just to make their coaching value.
Yeah. Yeah, there's one thing about paying your dues. There's another thing about being taken advantage of.
100%. And that's the conversation that we need to change is, what does it mean to be an entry-level coach? Well, entry-level with a master's degree, 2 certifications, how are they supposed to get experience? How are they supposed to get these things when they can't survive with the money that they're being treated with? Whereas you look on the other side of things, what sport coaches are paid, and it's like, how's there any equality there? Like, how's there any accountability there? So I give credit to where credit's due, where football has pushed those initiatives, where men's basketball has pushed those initiatives, where women's basketball has now pushed that. But we have to keep driving in all those sports.
Absolutely. That's all we can do is keep pushing it forward.
For sure.
Well, hey, Coach, I really appreciate it. I know you've got a busy schedule. I know you travel around quite a bit, and I know you're probably trying to stay warm these days, being up in Chicago.
It snowed today. I don't even want to talk about it.
Well, at least you had an excuse to stay inside for half an hour and spend some time with us on the podcast.
For sure. And I just want to say thank you for the opportunity and being willing to post this content and this conversation across your platforms and the things you guys are doing, because helping spread that conversation, I hope that 3 more people feel empowered from either to reach out to me or to apply for a job they didn't think they should. So continue to challenge yourself and educate yourself and push that initiative.
Awesome. We'll do what we can. You keep doing what you can. Everybody's not following Coach on social. You need to. Really inspirational. Love reading your stuff. If you can, just tell everybody exactly the best way to find you on social.
Sure. Social media, Instagram, coach_mega_strong, and I think it's MEGA strong. And then just Megan Young on LinkedIn. I think it's Coach Mega on Twitter. Sorry for the different names. I grew with the times. Still growing. I don't have a TikTok, so bear with me.
TikTok dances going on in your world?
No, for sure not.
All right, Coach. Again, really appreciate it. Thanks for coming on with us today.
Thank you so much.